Work breakdown structure. Before we get going into the WBS, I want to backtrack a bit and review the project definition document. The checkmarked items are items that you want to make sure you include in the project proposal, or PDD. You want to make sure you include the purpose, goals, objectives, success criteria. Sometimes you see those grouped together. Project context, how does it fit into the bigger picture? Project dependencies, what are you dependent on in order to be able to run it? In scope, out of scope. What assumptions, what could happen? Constraints, what will you need to take into consideration? Risks, what if something goes wrong? Stakeholders, who cares? What about this? Who's involved? Recommended approach, and your preliminary budget and schedule. There are some additional elements that are used depending upon the complexity and requirements of specific projects. So those you'd have to take into consideration depending upon what you have going on. So in our case last week, we decided we're going to plan a Super Bowl party. Oh boy! So the title, Super Bowl Party. I know, not the most creative. And the purpose, you want to spend time with friends. You'll consider it successful if everyone has food and everyone has fun. Context, looking back, how does it fit into that bigger picture? Well, last year's event flopped, but Hazel's dip was great. Project dependencies, what can you do and what can you not do before something else is done? Maybe you can't get the food set up till the table is decorated. I don't know, it just depends. Scope. In this case, everyone brings food, everyone brings their own alcohol, you're good to go. Maybe out of scope is chairs for beyond 15 people that you're going to invite. Assumptions, things that you assume that you're going to want in place. Well, you assume and hope that Ted and Alice are going to be able to be there. They're the life of the party. If without them, you don't know that you want to do this. Constraints, things that you will need to take into consideration. You only have room for 15 people in your living room. So if someone wants to bring a guest, it's going to be a little crowded. Risks. What if the TV breaks? Well, maybe you need to make sure that you know what local bars are going to be hosting Super Bowl parties. And then what is your budget? So that gets us through the project definition document. So we're able to talk with stakeholders and make sure that, hey, this is, at least our primary stakeholder. In this case, it's the other person helping with the party. And you get to that preliminary point. Is this something we think we can pull off? Are we going to be able to do better than last year? Yeah, we're going to do this. Okay, let's go. Then you're ready to move to the work breakdown structure. And the work breakdown structure is either a graphical, and your textbook shows both versions, a graphic-based or graphical or an outline format for setting up your work breakdown structure. I prefer the outline structure. What it lets me do is it lets me break down the types of tasks that need to be done first. So call to invite, and someone will say, I'll do those. The food idea list. Okay, I'll gather that and then go from there. And then you're able to brainstorm down and start adding things to the different areas. So you can jump back and forth, and I tend to do that quite a bit, jump back and forth to my different lists until I feel that they've had a chance to be completely fleshed out and have filled in with what is going to be needed for each area. And it might take me a couple of days to be able to do that. And if you're waiting for other people to be able to get back to you, it could take even longer than that. Then I start my day of list. What all do I need to do? Well, I need to put hot dogs and jelly sauce in the slow cooker, put tablecloths on the table, frost my cupcakes, get a bowl of fruit to Hazel. Wait, I can't do that. I need to make a change. I need a day before list as well. Then I can defrost my hot dogs, make cupcakes, and get football bowl to Hazel early so that she can make her dip. So you're creating lists. And with the work breakdown structure, your goal is to get everything down that you want to be able to make sure that you cover for your project, no matter what it is. If you were, I have a student working on this, moving a warehouse, you want to be able to code each one of the items so that you can make sure that they get from where they need to be to the specific place they need to be in the new warehouse. You need to make sure that you have enough forklifts and that they are operational and that they have fuel and that there is someone there to be able to operate them during the times that you need. On and on and on with the details that you have to apply. So no matter whether your event is a simple party where some friends are going to get together and just enjoy each other and watch a football game, or whether you're doing something much, much more complicated like plan a trip to the moon, it still comes down to your first step before you start planning dates and breaking it down into who's going to do what, when, how, and where, is just to get the full list of tasks in place. Once you know what you have ahead of you, then next week when we talk about the project schedule, you're much more likely to be effective in your list of determining what needs to be done first, second, who's going to do what. You can say, wait a minute, I can't do mini hot dogs and artichoke dip. I only have one slow cooker. And then someone else can say, well, I have a slow cooker I could drop off to you on such and such day, and that way you can still make both dips. Wonderful. So then you get that down, and that way you know what you have going on. And you know that you need to have the slow cooker before you can start the dip, or things like that, so that you're able to time everything out. It's important to get all of the details down so that you can make sure that you have all the details covered in your project schedule. If you try to do it in your project schedule, you run the risk of skipping steps because you may not have, you're thinking more timeline instead of random items. Also, make sure that you involve primary and, if possible, at least some of the secondary stakeholders in this process so that anyone directly involved is able to provide input. Wait a minute, you don't need to get mini hot dogs. I already have 10 dozen that I got at a party or that I got at a raffle. Let me bring 2 pounds of them over for the event. So by talking to people, you're able to better make use of materials, better make use of time and other resources that you have. You can also have another list. What do we have that we don't need, or that we don't need to buy, I mean. Maybe we already have grape jelly, so we don't need to buy that for our sauce with the hot dogs. So different things. So your purpose of your WBS is to get everything out into either graphical or outline format so that you know exactly what you have to go on. And that way, when you move forward into the project schedule, your information is more likely to be complete and to have the detail necessary. On a side note, the amount of detail will vary depending upon the project manager and the project manager's experience. Once the project manager has done a specific project for an extended period of time over and over, they're more likely to skip some of the smaller items because they already know what needs to be done. They may not list defrost hot dogs. They already know that the night before they're going to set hot dogs out, and they just don't make it a formal list. It depends on the person, depends on the project. So the amount of detail listed is up to the project manager, but I like to err on the side of caution. More information, that way I can better make sure that I'm covering all my bases. That's it. Thank you very much.